You're listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.
This episode,
we'll be walking straight into FAB Facts.
We're looking for something that can show us the way in the Randomiser.
And our interview is with Mr. Radio Times, Morgan Jeffery.
That's all coming up in Pod 106
of the Gerry Anderson podcast.
Let's get started. Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The Gerry Anderson podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
It's the Gerry Anderson podcast.
Yep. Pod,
it's been a while.
106.
Yes, that's right. Yes, here we are.
That's how it works, isn't it? This is the Gerry Anderson podcast. You are Richard James.
Yes, and you're Jamie Anderson, son of the legendary Gerry Anderson, who we are here to celebrate for the next hour and a half or so with all the usual stuff. Shall I go through the menu, Mr. Anderson?
Please do.
Well, we have FAB Facts coming up shortly, of course, everyone's favourite segment in the show. We've got a rather special interview that Jamie's conducted with, as was said in the opening credits, Mr. Radio Times, Morgan Jeffery,
so
coming
that's
up
the
a bit
main
later.
Course.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, then we have a little, we've got a few other things. So we've got a dessert, which will be obviously Chris Dale's Randomiser.
Oh, lovely, yeah, and round it off with something sweet. What about the palate cleansers?
Well, we'll have to start. No, you see, I'm confused myself now because I've missed out the Gerry Anderson news, which is obviously some little sort of a amuse-bouche at the beginning of the meal.
Yeah.
I've missed out the emails and tweets and so on that people have been sending in at podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk or hashtagging us Gerry Anderson Podcast on Twitter. I've missed out the fact that we'll be going to our Facebook group to see what people have been posting there, which I suppose would be the coffee and cheese,
nice.
Of course. And then we might follow off with a little sort of one of those hard little mints that they give you as
mint
you walk
imperial.
out in a little bowl. That's a little mint imperial. What would be the mint imperial? I suppose that would be. I tell you what, a little mint imperial. No, it'll be a little surprise that I've got for you a bit later on, Jamie.
One.
Yeah,
you and your
right.
surprises.
There you go. So yes, here we are. Gerry Anderson podcast.
What an amazing menu meal analogy we managed to pull out of the hat
stumble
there.
through. Yeah. Yeah. Not sure I'll do that again, to be honest.
No, let's not. Well, in fact, let's have it anyway. I think actually the real amuse-bouche of this entire podcast is FAB Facts.
Oh, of course it is.
Now, time for this week's FAB Facts.
So I may or may not continue this theme of food-related elements.
We might have to leave it there.
But FAB Facts...
Yeah, so if I don't like this, can I send it back?
Yeah, as long as you don't do that thing where you half eat it and then go, oh, well, there was a hair in it. Or,
that's right. It's too cold, yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit too salty.
Yeah.
Go on, then. Now, this is FAB Facts, where I've got a menu of FAB Facts.
Mm-hmm.
And as the FAB Fact sommelier, I will flick through and you will exclaim FAB.
Yeah.
And that will stop me on a random FAB amuse-bouche dish, and we'll read that.
It's really not working, is it?
Great. Okay. Are you ready, Richard James?
Go on, then. Yeah, born ready. FAB.
Well, it's 1999, but not as you might expect it.
Okay. Go on.
Well, this is actually going to tap into a bit of childhood trauma for me, Richard. So
no. You'll just lay down on the couch.
You'll certainly enjoy that. Yeah, I will lie down. I'm just going to lie down now. So
there you go. Now, tell me about those dreams you've been having, Jim.
Yeah. No, well, we've already talked about that before the recording, and we're not going there. When I was a child,
yes,
and Thunderbirds was shown on the BBC in the UK in the 1990s.
Yeah,
my friends, in inverted commas, at school used to mock me by doing the Super Mario Nation puppet walk.
Oh, of course they did, yes, I can imagine.
Never terribly accurate, always mildly offensive. And I would say from that time in, I guess it would have been 1991, to around 2003, not a school day would go by without some sort of mocking puppet reference. Can you hear the pain in my voice?
Yeah, I really can, yeah. Tell me about it, Jamie.
Anyway, moving on from that, a lot of people found the Supermarionation puppet walk amusing. Dad in particular found it irritating, but it became something that was parodied quite regularly on comedy shows and various TV shows. Well, throughout the decades, really, but particularly around the time of the re-showing in the 90s. I'm sure I remember seeing Bobby Davro doing a skit on it, doing a silly walk. Anyway, everybody did it. But the Supermarionation walk inspired something quite interesting in 1999. Do you know the movie Galaxy Quest, Richard?
Oh, I love Galaxy Quest, yeah.
Yes.
Of course.
Are you going to make a gag about it being a chocolate bar there or something?
No, I wasn't going to go there, but is it a chocolate bar?
No, Richard, I don't know if you know, but it is actually an affectionate parody of Star Trek.
Yes, it is.
Including its actors and fandom, etc. Anyway, there's a rather lovable octopus-like alien species in there called the Thermians.
Okay.
They adopt a humanoid form for the film, but the gag is they can't quite get the human walk right.
Yes, I remember, yeah.
Now, the style of walking that they use was in fact inspired by Supermarionation, specifically the puppet walk from Fireball XL5.
Right.
The actors that were playing the Thermians were even put through an alien school, or alien school, I suppose, if I want to get the emphasis right, to perfect that puppety walk. So if you ever watched Galaxy Quest, or you watched it recently, or are planning to watch it soon, then you may want to take note that within that homage to Star Trek, there is also a nice nod to the Anderson worlds of Supermarionation, particularly Fireball XL5.
Oh, well, that's nice. That's very good.
Yeah.
Now, did I read somewhere they're making a series of Galaxy Quest?
Oh, did you? I hadn't heard that, but that sounds very exciting.
It does. And also, of course, the puppet walk featured quite heavily in the Thunderbirds FAB stage show.
Absolutely. Slightly more direct influence there.
Yes, and we went to great pains because it's very easy just to do a kind of flippity-floppity puppety walk, isn't it?
Flippity-floppity puppety walk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gavin Robinson and Andy Dawson, who directed and created the show, were very intent on making it very specific so that you almost could see the strings. It wasn't just about going limp and wobbly. You had to imagine that, certain limbs were attached by strings. So we took a long time getting that right.
And I certainly remember Wayne Forrester doing a demonstration of his puppet head turn.
Yes,
which
that's
had
right.
A kind of a slight wobble to it, and just getting the kind of the representation of the friction in the neck joint and that sort of thing.
That's it. So the idea being that the body turned first and the head very slowly wobbled after it, which is quite a nice little touch.
Yeah, very sweet.
Very good.
Well, really, you should have been the walk teacher at the Alien School for Galaxy Quest, shouldn't you?
Well, hey, I'm sure I was free. Why did I not get that call?
I don't know, but if they are making a series and the producers of that series are listening, then you can email us, podcast at gerryanderson.co.uk with a subject line, job for Richard James, and we'll put you in touch.
Now,
and only take a small commission.
Yeah, I never thought I'd hear again. Job for Richard James. Music to my ears.
Well, happy to brighten your day a little bit.
Well, thank you for that.
There you go. Is that the end of this one? I think it probably is, isn't it?
I can't think of anything more.
Good. Then that is the end of this week's
Warp Fact. No, I said Warp Fact. I don't know why I did that. WARP.
Well, that's fine. Let's just leave it at that. A warp walk fact. Brilliant.
Well, thank you for that. What a very interesting fab fact it was too. I won't send it back to the kitchen after all. Very happy with that. Now, I'm going to turn to a few emails because people have been emailing us at podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk since we last met. For example, Philip Brooks Law, which sounds like something I studied in physics. Back at school. Do you remember the Philip Brooks Law?
Yeah, is that about...
it's the inverse ratio to how long an email is to how informative and entertaining it is.
Ouch, is that an insult to poor Philip Brooks Law?
Of course it isn't. I'm only joking. Philip says, "Hi guys, I just want to start by saying thank you for being so fun and entertaining." Well, he'll take that back now with the podcast each week. It's really comforting for me to come home, back from work at the local supermarket on Mondays, to know I've got the latest pod to look forward to. And in the case of Pod 100, I spread that all over 1 week. Keep me positive through these strange times we find ourselves in. The interviews have always been brilliant, but the most recent I found really interesting about being behind the scenes of the lesser-known shows like Lavender Castle, and speaking to Dr. David Parker and David Tremont just shows how inspiring these series can be, and I think we could do with more positive messages like that now more than ever. Hear, hear. The news of the Thunderbirds soundtrack is fantastic. I've been getting the vinyl releases of UFO and Supercar as they're stunning and sound very clear. It's really good that Silver Screen are doing these releases as the music speaks for itself, but these soundtracks have been very difficult to get hold of, only available from eBay at some overblown prices. I've been very lucky to have almost a full selection of soundtracks from Four Feather Falls, lovely, to New Captain Scarlet, missing some of the really hard ones to get, and it's great to hear changes through the years, from Barry Gray to Richard Harvey to Crispin Merrill. I really like the Terrorhawks and New Scarlet music, bringing new elements without losing what Barry Gray brought to the early 60s shows. They're so magical to listen to, and I can see the images very clearly in my head of the first time you see the Skydiver in UFO, or the Fireflash landing, or Thunderbird 2 crashing in Thunderbirds. It's great that this work is more accessible to everyone, and that's with regards from Philip. How lovely. So he's enjoying the various soundtracks. Yeah. Interesting there he spoke about the lineage from Barry Gray to Richard Harvey to Crispin Merrill. That's quite a nice thought, isn't it? I haven't really considered it.
Well, I think there is lineage, though, isn't there? I mean, at some point, we are going to speak to Richard Harvey about his involvement, and you'll hear him then, I'm sure, talking about how Dad wanted to kind of start afresh a little bit, but they both understood implicitly that you can't reject the previous couple of decades of Barry Gray stuff. And Crispin said the same, I'm sure, in his interview, that he wanted to have the oomph and the epicness from Barry Gray, and I think you kind of do get that in the Space Precinct theme. There's a shared DNA there that you can't get away from.
Yeah, that's right. On a similar topic, Michael House from Tokyo in Japan emailed, "Dear podcast hosts," so obviously forgotten our names there for a moment, "congratulations on announcing the Thunderbird soundtrack. Will there be a digital download purchase option for those of us who live far away from the UK? I'd prefer to reduce physical merchandise shipments to me in Tokyo to any extent practicable. Thank you for your time and consideration. Sincerely, Michael." Well,
Michael, it's not up to us. And I don't actually know whether Silver Screen's license extends beyond physical media. There certainly, as far as I know, have not been digital releases of the UFO or Supercar soundtrack. I suspect there will not be a digital one. My guess, and this is just purely a guess, I have no insider info, is that once all the soundtracks are out, there will be a kind of complete Barry Gray. And that may get a digital release, I guess, because they'll think it's got more potential audience, a kind of mix of stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm really glad the soundtracks are making their way out. Many more to come. And I think Silver are going to cover pretty much every single Barry Gray series in its own right. So I don't know whether that'll include Four Feather Falls or not. But you can certainly look forward to Captain Scarlet and Joe 90 and Stingray and maybe even the Secret Service. Who knows?
Aha. Nice. Good. And Jamie, do you know where we were this time last year?
Well, what is it? It's Friday the 19th of June. I don't actually know. Oh.
Well,
hang on.
Just a couple of days ago.
Just hanging up a FaceTime call.
Oh, all right. How dare they?
Do carry on. Where were we on the 19th of June 2019?
Well, we were only at the Fab Worlds of Gerry Anderson in Leicester.
Oh, was that then? I always think that was later in the year.
No, we had an email from Hannah who says, "Dear Richard and Jamie, I hope you're well. Can you believe it's a year today when we first met at Leicester Space Centre? It was a great day, and I'm afraid I didn't see the Fab Live or podcast event, not because I wasn't interested, I just wanted to look around. And I had a nice little chat with Alan Shoebrook, which is absolutely fine." She says, "I've recently completed some new drawings, and I thought that maybe I could send them to you, and they could be put on Facebook or Twitter, as I don't have an account on any of them. I do, however, have an Instagram page where I keep my other drawings. It's not very Gerry Anderson themed, but I do like to share my creations with those who are fans of Anderson's work, and I'll be happy for them to be put on display." And she says, "I've got some more planned soon. So if you're interested, Hannah's Instagram page is Button Moon Model and Art." So Hannah was just one of many, many people we saw at Leicester over a year ago. Of course, we were hoping to repeat the experience, maybe make it bigger and even better this year. But who knows? We're not quite sure what's happening there.
No, I suspect it's going to be 2021.
Yeah. But that's okay. Well, we can hold our horses and come back with an even bigger splash next year.
Absolutely. Consider the horses held.
Yes, quite. Now we're mixing our dining and our equestrian metaphors, aren't we? Which isn't really working for me.
Well, I'm raring to go from the starting gates, so Shall we go into some Gerry Anderson news? Are you going to do an equestrian themed news, or was that it with your nay?
News! How's that?
Oh, a bit topical. Interesting that you'd go for a hunting version. But,
yeah, there you go. Yeah. Well, it's just my little mini audition in case there's anyone listening.
Yes, anyone who wants fox hunting Foley, Richard is available for all of the human and horse parts.
Very reasonable rates.
Yeah. Right, so we do some Gerry Anderson news rather than you trying to get jobs throughout this thing.
Yeah, go on then.
Because actually we gave you a small job for Zero
that's
X,
true.
the motion comic. Well, part 2 has just been out this weekend, just gone. Part 3 is coming up this Saturday. If you haven't yet watched it, do pop along to the Gerry Anderson YouTube channel, youtube.com/Gerry Anderson TV. Watch, enjoy, comment, like, share, watch again, share with somebody else, and then shout out the window that you love Zero X.
Yeah.
And if you want to film yourself doing that to prove you've done it, then do email that video to podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk.
Look forward to seeing those.
Oh, can't wait. Bob Bell and Derek Meddings, Richard, two vital names to the world of Gerry Anderson. And we are recognising their contributions by reprinting some of their work and making it available via the Gerry Anderson store.
Great.
So Bob Bell's lovely painting of the Tracy Lounge in use being filmed with several identifiable members of the Century 21 team, including Dad and Christine Glanville and a couple of others, is now available as a poster, print, or even canvas, wrapped or framed. Does look very smart. In fact, I've got a copy here, which I will send you a picture of later on. They're rather nice. Ooh. And also, Derek Meddings drew a picture in the early 60s when they were doing Stingray, kind of gently poking fun at almost everybody at AP Films and the way they did things. It's a lovely image. Yeah. And that is also available in a similar format, so prints, posters, etc. So if you want to add some slightly subtler Century 21 hints to your home decor, then... well, why not grab one or both of those? They're available at the Gerry Anderson store now. And having been away for some time, the Thunderbirds logo T-shirt is back by popular demand. That's been sort of disappeared for some reason. I don't know why. It sold out about 2 years ago. And it's just one of those things that we keep meaning to bring back. Well, it's finally here again. So you can pop along and grab one of those and display your love of all things Thunderbirds.
Yeah, great.
Should you wish to do so. I think that's probably about it this week. It's a short news week.
Well, you say that.
Oh, have you got something?
Because, well, I spotted a bit of news that could be Gerry Anderson related, and so did many other people on Twitter, like Mike Plant, for example. Could be. Well, listen to this. Mike Plant and many others tweeted a link to a story in the New York Times this week. Now, as I read on, perhaps you can figure out why. The red planet is glowing green.
Yes.
Or rather, it says, oxygen atoms in the planet Mars's atmosphere are emitting a particular wavelength of light that appears green when looked at with specialist equipment. Although scientists have seen this green glow around Earth in the past, this is the first time it's been observed on another planet. It was spotted by the European Space Agency's Trace Gas Orbiter, which is currently orbiting the planet. This ethereal night glow might draw comparisons with the aurora borealis here on Earth, but in fact, they're two different things. The northern lights are caused by charged particles from the sun smashing into molecules high up in our atmosphere. Meanwhile, the night glow is the interaction of sunlight with atoms in the air, creating a continuous light. So the Mistrons have been busy. The green glow around Mars.
Well, if that wasn't a warning, I don't know what it would be.
Yeah, no, that's right. Well, it could just be sunlight interacting with atoms in the air.
Oh yeah, it might just be that.
Yeah, as I said, if you weren't listening.
Sorry, I was just imagining the Mistrons there.
Oh, I see. Yeah, no, very good.
Projecting a warning, like the Batman torch symbol into the sky.
Yes,
the Mistrons surrounding Mars with the green ring, saying, "Don't come here."
Exactly. There we are.
Earth.
So yes, the red planet is growing green.
And glowing as well.
Exactly.
Okay, well that is a nice addition.
Brings us to the end.
What?
Of this week's Gerry Anderson News.
Oh. I'm not singing it.
Oh,
You'll have to go without. Richard,
that was weird, wasn't it?
You've really discombobulated me.
I know. It's really odd. It's like putting on someone's shoes, isn't it? It doesn't quite fit, and it's a bit tight around the heel. And
right, okay. Well, yeah,
that's what it feels like.
I don't often put on somebody else's shoes, so...
well, I'm an actor, you see, so it happens all the time.
Right, okay. Gosh. Right, well, you've probably got some stuff to do now. I need to recover from that weird moment.
Over on our Facebook page, facebook.com/groups/Podsterons, Chris Thompson, who produced the wonderful Planet of Bones that we've been talking about in the news there, posted a little article and asked people to send in their thoughts and comments, whether they enjoyed the first episode this was, and James Pilson Wood posted, I loved it. The story of Zero X is so expansive, I can't wait for more. Joanne Bennett says, it was really nicely done, and I love the choice of voice actors too. Well, here, Joanne. She says, I can't wait for more. And finally, Lee Sullivan, who we know and love, said, wonderful stuff, Chris. Mike Noble would have loved this. And wouldn't he just?
Oh, yeah. I think so, yeah. I mean, he loved anyone sort of enjoying his work again and looking at it and praising him, and he was so sort of meek and mild about the whole thing. He said in his interview, didn't he, in the chat that we had, he can always see the faults with it.
Yes.
So,
gosh.
Yeah, but it's just lovely, and everybody, I think, who's seen that has said how much it's kind of brought their childhood to life. So,
yeah, absolutely right, yeah.
More of those to come.
Absolutely. Patrick Fontaine posted, all right, I just tweeted Elon Musk to be a guest on the Gerry Anderson podcast with Jamie and Richard's tweet ID. I think Elon Musk would make a great guest on the Gerry Anderson podcast because it's obvious with SpaceX rockets and the mole tunnel system and Tesla cars that he loves to bring Gerry Anderson's ideas into real life. As long as Elon is on his best behaviour for the interview, I would like to hear how he was inspired by Gerry Anderson, and we could find out more about why he named his newly born child with such a strange name.
Yeah, I think if we got him on, I probably wouldn't be asking him about the name of his kid.
I mean, that would be a bit of a coup, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, you never know. I mean, we do have some rather interesting guests lined up, Richard, as you know.
Yes,
I won't mention yet until we've actually got them recorded.
Sure. Yeah.
Rather unexpected. But not Elon Musk yet. If we do get him, then sadly. Gosh, that would be lovely.
And finally, Paul Hyder is asking himself whether every Gerry Anderson series has an animal in its title. Now, obviously, Jamie, you have a strong connection with the Gerry Anderson universe, and obviously you also live on a farm, so you know a fair bit about animals, don't you? So,
yes,
I thought it might be time for one of these.
Disaster.
Yes, it's a special animal-themed Quickfire 5. So choose from one of these, please. Firstly, The Adventures of Tweezle or Tortry the Battery Boy.
Oh, God, can I not burn both of them? Tweezle. Yeah.
Four Feather Falcons or Super Carp.
Oh, Super Carp every day.
Fireball X Eel 5.
Oof.
Or The Signet Service.
Oh, these are
aren't they?
These are something. Exeal 5, please.
You spell EWEFO or Space Pre-Skinked.
What?
Space Pre-Skinked.
Wow.
Or UFO.
They're both really bad. But I'll have UFO, thank you.
And finally, Newt Captain Scarlet or Lavendier Castle.
Or I will have Newt Captain Scarlet, please.
There you go. Well done. There's a special thanks to Paul Hyder there for a very special animal-themed Quickfire 5.
They were quite interesting, weren't they? Goodness me.
There you go. So yes, do drop on over to our Facebook group there. Join in the fun. They're producing colouring books. They're having quizzes every Saturday night, generally cheering each other up with silly stories and pictures. So pop on over. There'll be 3 questions to answer. We'll let you in and you can join in the fun.
Yes, it's certainly more fun than animal-based Gerry Anderson show titles. I mean, I thought you were going to just go for Stingray, Terror
Well,
Hawks.
yes, of course. Yeah, Thunderbirds. I know.
Yeah, I mean, they've already
he got clever
them
on us, didn't he? Yeah.
Yes, clever is a word. No, thank you for that. Great fun. And you know how much I love a Quickfire 5.
Of course you do.
Right, shall we move on, Richard?
I think we ought to.
Probably time that we turn over to our guest this week.
Oh, yes.
And our guest this week is the rather marvellous Morgan Jeffery.
Now, tell us more about Morgan Jeffery.
Well, we know Morgan because, he has a podcast called 2 Geeks, 2 Beers. where they talk about cult telly, and their first ever episode was about Terrorhawks. And I think that's where our paths crossed digitally. And then he was the entertainment editor, I think, for Digital Spy, and they covered a lot of Anderson stuff. And then since then, I bumped into him at a Doctor Who magazine party at some point and said hello.
Of course he did, yeah.
And then he's moved to the Radio Times and still does a lot of Anderson coverage as well as other bits and pieces. Anyway, Morgan obviously has a great view of the entertainment landscape. He's an Anderson fan. He became an Anderson fan with repeats rather than the original runs of stuff, which gives him a different perspective. And he also has a kind of contextual view where he can put the worlds of Gerry Anderson into a modern entertainment landscape and see how it compares, how it stacks up. So a really different point of view to, our most recent guests, including David Tremont and Chris Bowden and others.
Yeah.
So here with a brand new point of view is Morgan Jeffery.
Hello, I'm Morgan Jeffery. I am currently the acting executive editor of RadioTimes.com.
That's an amazing thing. I thought you were associate editor. Acting executive sounds even better.
I'm recently promoted, yeah. It's just as nebulous a title, but I think that sounds slightly more impressive, right?
It sounds amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. So, Morgan, you are also the host of, or the co-host of, the Two Geeks, Two Beers podcast.
Thank you for the plug, Jamie. Yes, I also have my own rival podcast, which I co-host with my good friend, Tom Eames, as you say, the Two Geeks, Two Beers podcast. And if you imagine two pals geeking out in a pub, that's the kind of vibe we're going for. And we take a sideways look, which is a terrible way of putting it, at all things geek. So television, film, video games. And of course, we have a couple of Anderson-themed episodes, including our very first episode was all about Terrorhawks.
Yeah.
And then, which I know you're a big fan of. And then episode 44, we had someone on, I can't remember who, but they talked us through Gerry Anderson's career, very kindly gave us some of their time in a London pub, back when such things were feasible.
When that was allowed, yeah. So some bald guy, I think I know the one. So yes, it's a bit of a sweary into you, if I remember, particularly towards the bottom of the second beer.
It's often that way on the Two Geeks, Two Beers podcast. Yeah, perhaps not as, fair warning, perhaps not as family friendly as the Gerry Anderson podcast.
But there you go. Well, but I'm sure our listeners will want to go and check that out if they haven't already. And you've been going for like 5 years, haven't you?
Yeah, we recently hit our 5-year anniversary, which is mad. And
happy birthday.
Thank you. And current circumstances have upped our productivity a little as well. 5 years sounds impressive, but actually we tend to put out an episode about once a month, nowhere near as productive as you and Richard. So, but recently our productivity has been upped. Not through our own choice. But if you did want to check out the podcast, the website is twogeeks2beers.com, and we're also on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram at 2geekscast.
Amazing. Please go and do that, listeners, but not now, because you'll want to stay and listen to what Morgan has to say. I was trying to recall later on how we first met or connected. Can you remember? This would have been when you were at Digital Spy. Am I allowed to say that as a rival entity to Radio Times?
Oh, no, that's my dark past that you're delving into. No, so I was previously a TV editor at Digital Spy, and I think we've conversed a little bit on Twitter and stuff, but I think we first met, I think I cornered you at a Doctor Who magazine party.
Yes.
I think I spotted you. We very briefly exchanged a few words. I think I literally just said, I know you off of Twitter. You said, yeah. And then we said, see you later.
That's a perfectly legitimate way to introduce yourself, though, these days.
It really is. And and then after that, I think the next time we might have actually spoken in the flesh was when you did our podcast.
Wow. Okay. It seems like we've met more times than we have more. But anyway, you're a friendly face and a well-known geek in the best way possible, and a Gerry Anderson fan. You always do your bit to help promote anything Anderson. So
I absolutely abuse my position whenever possible to write about Gerry Anderson stuff. Yes.
Okay. Well, long may that continue. So why are you such an Anderson fan? I was going to say, why are you such a geek? I mean, we're all geeks, so there's nothing wrong with that. But in particular, where has your interest in Gerry Anderson stuff come from? When did you first see it?
I have vague memories of Anthea Turner building the makeshift Tracy Island on Blue Peter.
Excellent.
As I'm sure many of my generation do. And that was, early 90s? 93?
I think maybe earlier than that, even 91 or 92, yeah.
Oh, right. So I would have been 5, 6, 7.
Yeah.
So that's a vague memory. But it was really the BBC Two repeats of Captain Scarlet, which again, early 90s. I think I was about 7, maybe.
Yeah.
And I have very clear memories of watching the Podsterons, the first episode, and in particular, certain images just from your childhood just stay with you, and in particular, Scarlet plummeting off the top of the car view. I remember that. The moment where he's shot by Blue, and then the puppet's face changes.
Yes, that face is so grim.
And I just remember being absolutely captivated by that. So that was really where my Anderson obsession started.
Okay. So I'm always interested then in that case, for people that came to it first in the 90s and it's a rerun, when it's essentially already almost 30 years old. Obviously that BBC Two kind of weekday cult TV slot had a lot of stuff that wasn't necessarily that contemporary. But when you were growing up, kids' TV at the time was a lot more focused on animated stuff. I want to say Captain Planet, that must have been a thing that was all around then. Maybe some early CG stuff, a lot of kind of live action kids drama. What else would it be? X-Men, the cartoon of X-Men.
Right.
So how did Captain Scarlet and puppetry fit into that landscape? Because it must have stuck out a bit like a sore thumb.
Well, it did stick out, but in a fantastic way. So I think I was quite a self-conscious child in the sense that I was always very preoccupied with being seen to be grown up. So if I ever saw something on television that I thought was skewing younger, I would avoid it in favor of more adult shows. So actually, when I was young, and I may be cast out of Anderson fandom for saying this, I wasn't a huge Thunderbirds fan.
Shock horror.
This is where I hand in my badge and my gun. I think there were a couple of reasons for that. I think when I was very young, the hour runtime actually felt like a bit of a commitment for someone with zero attention span. So I preferred the half-hour shows. And now, of course, I'm far more sensible, and I can appreciate Thunderbirds as pitch perfect family entertainment. But
Nice plug.
Yeah, but I think at the time it appealed less than Scarlet, which seemed a much more serious-minded show. It was a little more grisly. Sometimes the heroes would lose, which was not something I saw in a lot of other kids shows. It never felt like Scarlet was talking down to you, which some other 90s kids shows produced, contemporaneously. It felt like they did. Even the vocal performances in Scarlet, like Francis Matthews and Donald Gray, they felt more straight-laced somehow than a lot of what was being produced at the time. And actually, it's funny you say about X-Men, because that was one of my big obsessions as a kid, the 90s X-Men cartoon, and I was very much into comic books and Marvel and so on. And I think that's another reason I responded particularly strongly to Scarlet, because that is really the closest thing that the world of Anderson ever came to a superhero, right? He's got superpowers, he's got a special outfit, he's sort of got a secret identity, although that kind of switches up from episode to episode. But and Spectrum is this team of costumed crusaders, and they each have their own skill set. I'm actually surprised that a live action movie hasn't been seriously mooted in recent years, given how big the superhero movie craze has become. But yeah, Scarlet never talked down to you, so that was really part of the appeal and what made it stand out in a crowded kids TV market, I guess.
Yeah, it's certainly that thing of it feeling a bit more grown up, despite in inverted commas being puppetry. It's definitely there. And I think that vocal performance thing you said is a good observation, because that applies across almost all of the Anderson Supermarionation shows. Certainly, I think, compare it to any kids stuff, especially animated, there's always this heightened over the top performance, even in something which is relatively serious. Whereas these were like live action drama performances instead. Right.
I mean, you take Shane Rimmer. I mean, I'm not the first person to say this, but gusto and energy and real passion that he puts into playing Scott Tracy, there's never a hint of tongue in cheek or anyone really on any of those shows not taking it seriously. And the puppetry as well. It's a strange thing to say. I never really thought about it. I think it was one of those things where it was done. I mean, obviously, I grew up in an age where there were lots of Thunderbirds parodies doing the rounds, so you were sort of aware of things that people would say about it. But when you actually watched the shows, it wasn't the cliches. You couldn't always see the strings. It wasn't the funny walk. They were produced with such care and such panache And even now, like I've been rewatching Scarlet on Blu-ray recently, and that's something that's really struck me revisiting it, is just how well it holds up now. Puppetry is maybe not hugely in vogue, in kids' TV at the moment, wrongly, I think. But you could air those today, and they would absolutely stand up, which is remarkable for something that's made so long ago. Half a century ago. It's insane.
It is, and I wish that they would be screened. I mean, thankfully, as you will have seen, they've been added to BritBox recently, and I'm hoping we'll have a kind of complete Gerry Anderson hub there in due course, which will be a way. Nice? It's the nearest thing we're going to get, I think, to that kind of every decade resurgence, of which there wasn't really one in the 2010s. The last one was the early 2000s when the shows got replayed on the BBC. So I think there might be something coming in the next year or two.
That whole... Well, you were mentioning that cult BBC Two slot, which aired a lot of the Anderson shows. I think Space 1999 a little while later as well, which is when I watched that show. But also things like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and that slots like that don't really exist anymore because television's become a lot more fractured, right? So you have individual channels and streaming platforms for every single genre, every single interest you might have. You're kind of that's there for you, but then also it means that you don't necessarily get something like Thunderbirds or Scarlet given an airing on a big mainstream channel, a BBC or an ITV. So everything's become a little more niche in that way. I think you have to go out of your way to track this stuff down. And if you don't know about it, if kids nowadays don't know about Gerry Anderson shows, they need to be told about them, right? We need to get the message out to them.
They need to be indoctrinated in any way possible.
They do, absolutely they do. And they'll be happy they have been. Once it's happened.
Of course. No, we're always hearing of kids 3, 4, 5 years old, even into their sort of early teens, who are being introduced to the old shows and still love them. Even more modern Anderson productions like Space Precinct and New Captain Scarlet are still, getting new audiences. So there's a lot to be said for indoctrination. Well, no, and that's fantastic. I love Space Precinct. I think, Doctor Who fans often talk about My Doctor, that was my Doctor. And Space Precinct was my Anderson show, I think, because it was it was the first one I saw on original transmission. It was made for you, basically.
Exactly. And so although I enjoyed Thunderbirds and I loved Captain Scarlet and Space 1999, Space Precinct was the first one. I think I had somewhere in the back of my mind a knowledge that these were, even though they did stand up, that these were older shows, that they had a legacy, because my parents would say, I used to watch Thunderbirds when I was younger. Whereas Space Precinct, I knew that was new and that was exciting. And I know it can be a divisive show, but for me, that made it special, and that helped me to see past its flaws.
Flaws? Space Precinct? What are you talking about? It's interesting you say it's divisive. I'd say it's divisive between people who loved it and kind of apathy. There's nobody really hates Space Precinct.
No. But I think it's a show that would have really benefited from a second season. Because I think Anderson shows, they either come fully formed, like Thunderbirds, which just absolutely hits the ground running, and Scarlet as well, or sometimes they take a little while to bed in, like Space Precinct or like Terrorhawks. And I think Space Precinct was really kind of finding its feet along the way. And I think it really could have become something special if they had a second series. But having said that, I loved it on original broadcast. I had a big crush on Simone Bendix, as I think lots of people did. And also just thought that Jack Haldane was the coolest guy. Desperately wanted to be Rob Youngblood.
You thought Haldane was cool?
He was very, very cool, just in a very specifically 90s way.
Yeah, see, this may be a point of divisiveness between us, I think. I always found Haldane to be just so irritating. And even as a kid, because we're about the same age, and I just found him to be such a tosser, honestly.
I was taken in, I was charmed by Haldane, what can I say?
Yeah, there's no offense to Rob Youngblood, and he was very nice in person. So, I don't want to offend anybody except possibly you, Morgan. But I thought he was a real dick. So okay, then it's very rare that we actually get somebody who says Space Precinct was my Gerry Anderson show. That was my show. So for you, what was the biggest hit and the biggest miss about that series, and it can be something really, really small and niche, or it can be something bigger about the concept in either way. But, if you were talking to a Space Precinct fan, what's the one thing that you think they failed on? And then we'll go on to something good about it. Only one?
No, it's hard. It's hard because I talked about its flaws because I know that people talk about the fact that it maybe wasn't a hit of the level of a Thunderbirds or a Scarlet or a UFO even or a Space 1999. It doesn't quite have the legacy of those shows. I think tonally, maybe that show didn't immediately find its footing. That's what I would say. A lot of Anderson shows, and they vary quite a lot in tone. Some are darker, some are lighter, but many of them have a set established tone. They know what they're about from the very beginning, and I don't think Space Precinct did, even though it had been in development from the days of Space Police. Like I say, it didn't quite arrive fully formed. It was quite broad at times, quite dark at times, and I think if it had gone on to a second season, it may have been able to level out a little bit and decide exactly what it was about. But those are the things really that you don't notice as a younger viewer, I think. Yeah. I think tone and consistency are things that you worry, are things that adults worry about. How are children responding to the tone and the consistency of the format? As a kid, what I loved about it, I loved the characters, and it just looked like nothing else as well. I think it was actually a really polished production, and the prosthetics and the animatronics at the time felt really groundbreaking.
They were great,
yeah. So it was just a bit of a visual treat for me as well.
Okay. I mean, it should be enough to convert people who haven't tried, and we keep hearing people who, missed it in the 90s or skipped it or watched one episode and thought, I don't like it. Even Nick Briggs, that bloke, he didn't like Space Precinct, and he has recently watched a couple of the two-parters and loves them.
There we go. I thought you were going to say he's still refusing to watch it. He
really likes it. He really likes it. So
it's interesting because I think the Super Mario Nation shows have more of a sense of rollicking adventure, and a lot of the live action Anderson stuff is a little more moody and intense. Things like UFO and at least the first series of Space 1999. There's quite a divide there between the Super Mario Nation and the live action, whereas Space Precinct is more of a romp. It's kind of embracing a little more of that Super Mario Nation spirit, but in a live action form. So actually, I would say if you're a big fan of Super Mario Nation shows and you haven't seen Space Precinct, you actually might respond quite well to it because it does have that real heart and warmth, I think, that the early Super Mario Nation stuff does.
That is an interesting analysis. And you're right. There's something about the sort of the chases and even the music, even though it's not Barry Gray, it's Chris Morrell, who did a lovely score for that show. They are reminiscent of, Stingray hurtling along after a terrorfish, or Thunderbird 1 in pursuit of some guy on the back of a camera truck, that sort of stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean? It just reminds me of those.
It's maybe a Gerry Anderson show that was created with the knowledge of what had come before, I suppose. So every other show that had come before it was your dad trying out new things and new formats and new ideas. Space Precinct was the realization of this long harbored idea. And you had, like you say, the likes of Crispin kind of possibly looking to ape, although he does, fantastic original work, he's maybe like looking to ape a little of that Barry Gray feel. So it's almost like a tribute to Anderson shows of the past, I think, Space Precinct.
Yeah, it is. But without becoming a fanboy thing, I mean, you get people like Steve Begg who wanted to make the explosions as big as they were in the Derek Meddings days. And he always said that thing about Dad challenging him about why everything blows up like it's packed with 20,000 tons of TNT. And Steve was like, well, it's because all of your shows do exactly that.
Blows up not once, not twice, but 3 times. Yeah, no, exactly. It's a show that's aiming to match the Anderson classics. And maybe it doesn't quite hit those heights, but I think the ambition and the drive and the general kind of optimism of Space Precinct is to be celebrated.
Agreed. Go and buy the DVD now. Thank you. Thank you, Morgan Jeffery. More Morgan Jeffery Part 2 next week with more Morgan Jeffery talking and stuff.
Yeah, lovely Morgan Jeffery. Very sweet interview. Lovely, sweet.
And I should say, he, during that, had some rather significant lockdown hair and beard.
Oh, yes, I've seen the pictures.
And I've seen recently that has now been removed. So,
Lovely.
We are mourning the sad passing of Morgan Jeffrey's beard and caveman hairdo.
Now, Jamie, would you say that was a particularly lovely interview?
Yes, I would.
Would you say it was
what are you getting at?
Would you say it was quite a sweet interview? He's quite a sweet guest, wasn't he? Lovely and sweet.
He was very lovely and sweet.
Well, over on Twitter, Master Bondo Fox hashtagged us Gerry Anderson Podcast to say he's got a Gerry Anderson Podcast drinking game. Do a shot every time Jamie, Richard or Chris say lovely or sweet.
We don't say lovely or sweet that often, do we?
Apparently we do.
Really?
Well, we should do from now on.
Gosh.
And see what state they're in by the end of the podcast.
Yeah. I mean, it's sweet that somebody's bothered to make a drinking game about how much we say sweet and lovely, but
it is lovely.
I'm not sure how lovely he'll be feeling after this particular segment.
No, true. Megan said over on Twitter, I'm not sure how George Lucas feels about Jamie's assertion that without Gerry Anderson, there would be no Star Wars.
Oh, well, I had an email, actually, just saying you're absolutely 100% right.
From George Lucas?
From George Lucas, yeah.
Great, there you are.
Asterisk, there may not have been any email from George Lucas.
And Jeff Owen tweeted us to say, I'm slowly catching up on the pods. Just listened to the Gerry Anderson Podcast 102, and you mentioned about films showing silence in space. You might want to check the Joss Whedon series Firefly, says Jeff. Yes. That's quite famous for doing silent space effects. Okay.
I have seen Firefly. Fun, that, isn't it? It's sort of cowboys in space. Somebody will shoot me down for saying that, but...
Yeah, no, I know of it. I've never seen it. And finally, Mike Plant. I'm happy to say I'm finally up to date with the Gerry Anderson Podcast. It was a rather lovely surprise to hear a couple of my tweets read out as I got to the latest episodes. Well, there's another one for you. There you go.
He'll be getting meta soon.
Yeah,
in a couple of weeks' time, we'll be reading out his thanks for mentioning the fact that he was pleased.
Exactly. So, yes, do tweet us at Gerry Anderson Podcast, or rather, hashtag us Gerry Anderson Podcast, and tag him, I'm Jamie Anderson, me, Richard N. James. We'll see your tweets, and we'll read them out next time.
I look forward to those, as possibly will the people who've tweeted those things and sent in those emails.
I should imagine so.
Yeah. Right, shall we get to the dessert, as you previously described it?
I think we ought to. Is it particularly lovely and sweet?
It's lovely and sweet and beautifully textured.
Perfect.
Fantastic combination of elements. Yeah, exactly. It hasn't been cooked too long, so when you part it, you will enjoy the lovely, sweet contents of Chris Dale's Randomiser.
Dr. Magnus, I presume. Sorry, did I catch you in the middle of something?
No, I was checking on my patient.
Oh, I see. A strange way to check on a patient, putting a pillow over their face. Still, I'm sure you know what you're doing.
Who are you, anyway?
Of course, a layman such as myself might just have got the impression there that you were in fact trying to kill your patient. What would you say to that?
It's too late, Earthman. He's dead.
You're wrong, Magnus. You've killed the Randomiser. Well, not really killed, obviously, but...
I demand an explanation.
Well, it's very simple, Dr. Magnus. You see, you're a very naughty man, and I needed to find someone to press the button on the randomizer for me today. Using the little grey cells, I deduced that you'd probably try to murder General what's-his-name, so I asked if he wouldn't mind us putting the randomizer in his bed for the night. And it worked a treat. We caught a Podsteron and tricked you into making an episode selection when you put the pillow over the big red button. A rather neat little plan, even if I do say so myself.
That's all very well, but the General was due to have a serious operation this morning.
Oh, don't worry, Marina's performing that even as we speak. She's never actually seen the inside of a human brain before, but I'm sure she'll get the hang of it. So, nothing to say?
If I'm to fail, at least you will die first.
Oh, absolutely, yes, but before that, I suppose you wouldn't mind telling me what the randomizer selected today, just so as I don't die in ignorance, you know?
That should be fine.
Excellent.
Let's get on with it.
Well, if you'd just like to reach for the printout there... Oh, I didn't know it could do that. Oh well, there's one less Podsteron in the world. Right, let's see what we've got today. Well, it's Lavender Castle today as we join the Raiders of the Planet Zark, an episode I have never seen before. Good old Randomiser. Ooh.
Lavender Castle, a place of legend, fabled right across the universe. This is our quest to find it.
So, time for some more Lavender Castle. I always look forward to seeing some more Lavender Castle on the Randomiser because, as I've said before, but a reminder for those who don't know, I've not seen most of this series before, and that's one of only 2 series on this on the Randomiser that can make that claim. The other one, of course, being good old Torchy. But unlike Torchy, you know, if I watch an episode of Torchy, I'm pretty much guaranteed a lot of horrible uncomfortableness. With this, so far, every episode has just been an absolute treat, so I'm looking forward to seeing what Raiders of the Planet Zark gives us today. I also noticed from my notes here, this episode, story was by Chris Bowden, the script was by Chris Trengrove, and it was directed by Chris Taylor. And now I'm here to make it a quartet.
News headline.
There's just something interesting for you.
Glob orders attacks on Splizzledust.
Boring.
The ambassador from Quunk arrives for a state visit.
Ambassador from Funk, okay. I'm on board with this already.
On the planet of...
And here is a special message for Captain Thrice.
Ooh.
For a lavender compass to lighten your dark. Seek the Mountain of Morg on the planet of Zark.
Captain!
The Mountain of Morg? Ooh.
That is the end of this.
Oh, it's, that guy.
Mountain of Morg, you say?
I can't remember what his name is because I haven't seen his other episodes.
If we're ever to find Lavender Castle...
As I was the Guardian of the Guardian of the Dark Tower or the Twilight Tower?
Course for Planet Zark.
I haven't seen the episode that introduces him yet. He's got a bit of the sort of Magnus Greel about him with the helmet and the
Welcome to Planet Zark. Enter now the caves of Morg, and may the lavender compass be your reward.
As long as it's not the caves of Morgo, we don't want that big lump from Space Precinct hanging around here.
Fact. Why should I risk my life to find the lavender compass when those gullible fools will find it for me?
Oh, even his computer scanner thingy that he was using there has got a big evil face on it. That's quite cool.
Come on! Oh! Roger! Leica! Stop!
Oh no, what? Oh dear. Oh, that was close.
You all right?
Yeah.
Roger and Leica almost got impaled by a...
We'll explore this corridor.
All right.
Since we're stuck in it now. Yeah, they trod on a little, explode... Oh, what now?
It's solid. We're trapped.
Well,
Oh, I was going to say, I wasn't going to mention that. It looked like just they'd extended the set artificially with a painting. And it actually really is a painting and they can't go any further. That's very clever.
And the other two... What do you think, Isambard?
So yeah, Roger and Leica are trapped between spikes and a painting.
Stalactites.
oh, which knob?
Don't leave Sproggle around the buttons.
Saw deposits of limestone formed by...
It's like asking Jar Jar Binks to do brain surgery. It's just something you don't do.
Particularly damp in here.
Sproggle thinks...
So you...
Don't do
This
it.
might be artificial.
Exactly. There could be some kind of...
Oh,
Well done, Sproggle.
sorry.
Not to worry.
That's Sproggle and Squeakalot cut off from Isambard and Thrice.
How long is this going to take, Squeaky?
Well, at present rate of progress, about 3 hours. But don't worry, you go on. We'll be all right, won't we, Mr. Sproggle?
Oh, yes.
Oh yeah, there's only
Everything hunky-dory.
2 more buttons that Sproggle could... Oh, he was even glancing at them. Yeah.
Like it? Now we're making some progress.
Don't be too sure, Captain.
Now that we've lost the other 4, things will go great.
What are these? Hieroglyphics?
Hieroglyphics. Oh, and that's
Captain,
Thrice
are
gone.
you there?
Don't worry about us. Find that compass.
I can't hear you, Captain.
Oh, everyone's so selfless in this show.
Says to forget about him and that you should go on and complete the mission.
Well, you're both walled up. I can't leave you here.
Just a moment. He says he
Again, I suppose it's a side effect of having only having 11 minutes to tell a story. You have to cram a lot in.
He's quite comfortable, if a little cramped, and he's got me for company.
Oh.
Go! Find the lavender compass.
Oh, all right. But tell him not to worry. I'll be back.
Good luck, Isambard.
Your time.
So that's it. Isambard is on his own looking for the lavender compass.
To find the compass, your companions are dead.
Oh, narrowly missed another,
I'm not falling for that one again.
raised,
You'll need to be
paving slab in the floor that would have brought down more spikes. Not good.
To save your companions, you have 30 seconds left.
Cool. Watch out. Oh, no. Too late. Hole opened up behind him, and down he goes. So, everybody has failed.
If the compass you'd possess, the right lever you must guess, but any mistake will cost you dear. Look above and quake with fear.
Oh dear. Talk about being caught between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, a great big rock hanging over the compass by a chain. I do love actually watching Isambard's reaction through that entire scene.
And then
The characters in this series are constantly moving. Their faces are constantly
one chance
in animation. He's got these little antennae over his eyes. His eyes are moving. His hands and his fingers are all over the place.
Friend to help you cope.
I've said this before. I think it's the
Best hope.
the number one quality, even for a non-fan of Lavender Castle, is just how gorgeous it all looks.
That doesn't even rhyme. With all this hassle, I need Lavender Castle.
10 seconds.
That's not a very good line.
Oh, I can't make a decision. This is worse than shopping for shoes. Wait.
5.
Lavender Castle? But what if it's a trick?
2.
Oh, one of the buttons is lit up lavender. So, lever even, so he's pulled that.
Good grief.
There we are. Oh, now everyone's free. That's it. Thrice is out. Off to find Sproggle and Squeakalot. I don't know why you would why you would want to take Sproggle at this point. Quite frankly, a bit of a liability, but
You got the compass for us.
Correction, Captain. Your clever friend got the compass for me.
Guardian, I thought you died when your Twilight Tower was destroyed.
Reports of my death were greatly exaggerated, Captain. Now, no one move or Big Nose gets it.
Big Nose?
I might have got a big nose, but I've got an even bigger tail.
Oh, right. So, that was easy. Oh no! Oh! And that's, I guess, it for the Guardian.
Retribution will follow.
That fella's got more lives than my granny's wee moggy.
Well, he sounds like he's still alive, but he has just been crushed by a great big,
Before it fades
block.
away like it did last time.
Everyone...
Which is quite violent for this show.
Compass.
Anyway, we've got the compass, the lavender compass.
Got it.
Me too.
Just in time. Now, back to the ship.
Oh, it's gone, and I probably waffled over the explanation of where it went.
Fire up the engine.
Aye, aye, Captain.
Roger, prepare for takeoff.
No worries, Captain.
Now, according
Sproggle,
calculations, the lavender...
just don't do anything.
No, Captain. I'm sure it was that way.
I don't wish to contradict you, Miss Leica, but I'm positive it was this way.
Sproggle's the navigator on this ship.
Quite right.
Yes, time for a change there, I think, Sproggle.
22.
Have you ever considered a career in toilet cleaning?
28.
All right, everyone. We're on our way to Lavender Castle.
Oh, so I guess the compass pointed the way.
That's exactly where we are now.
Ah, Sproggle.
Sproggle.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Right, so that was an entertaining little episode, but unfortunately it all seems to have come to nothing because they found the little lavender compass. It pointed the way. Everybody forgot which way it was pointing. The compass disappeared, so they can't reuse it again. And, a nice idea. Very nice sets and a nice atmosphere. Nice to see Isambard get a bit more focused than usual, but the story was kind of like, oh well, there was that, and it doesn't amount to anything, which is, kind of an unfortunate note to end the episode on, but I suppose it still leaves our brave heroes looking for Lavender Castle. Maybe they'll find it next time.
Thank you, Chris 4.
Yes. Yeah, well, Chris the Fourth, yes, I suppose.
Yes, Chris the Fourth in a story by Chris 1, written by Chris 2, and directed by Chris 3 and reviewed by Chris 4. Thank you, Chris.
What are the chances? It's like it was meant to be.
It was, yes. That whole thing was just lined up so that one day it could be reviewed by Chris Dale. Thank you, Chris. So lovely bit of Lavender Castle with some awkward rhyming in there. And one of those cute stories where, it's all about the Lavender Compass. We must find it. And when they actually get it, they forget which way it was pointing and then it disappears. And the whole thing was a waste of time.
Wah.
Yes. Oh, if only Crispin had done one of those bits of that music cue there, that would have been great. Yeah. No, Lavender Castle is so sweet. And Chris enjoys it, even though it's one of only 2 series that he's not seen before, as you mentioned. So
that's right.
Stacking up against Torchy, well, I know which one I'd rather.
No contest, really. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Very good. Well, I wonder what he'll get next week. We don't know because it's random, of course. Now, in the meantime, you can subscribe to us on whichever platform you're listening to us on. Don't forget to leave us a nice rating and share us with your friends so they can hear us too. Carl Scutt also got in touch to say he's one of our Kiwi listeners. I like Tuesdays, says Carl. A new pod for me to listen to, and after work I've got the house to myself, so I indulge in watching a Gerry Anderson series. As a rule, I'll dip into a box set and watch the first disc before moving on to another series. I decided to watch Joe 90 this time round. I cannot remember the last time I watched this series, but as a kid I loved it. Sadly, as an adult, it's a hard watch. I haven't given up on watching it, but it will be a labour of love, that's for sure. And that's from Carl Scutt. Well, fair enough. I mean, you might think that, others might disagree, mightn't they, Jamie?
There's many people that like Joe 90, and there's nothing wrong with that or with them.
Or them. No. That can't be fixed with a quick...
the quick lobotomy.
That's right.
Obviously, I'm only joking.
It's all fun.
There are bits, and even shows you don't like, there are bits to like about them, like the music. I love the music in Joe 90.
And also, sometimes it's fun not to like something in a fun way, isn't it?
Oh, I think so, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the secret to our partnership, isn't it, Richard?
Quite right. It's got us this far, isn't it?
How lovely and sweet you are.
There we are. Well, likewise, lovely and sweet.
Cheers. Right, is that the end? I think we should probably stop talking now. Not forever, but just for this week.
No, I think so, yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for listening, Podsterons. We love having you, and we hope you're all doing all right as things gradually unlock from the strange situation we found ourselves in for the past few months.
Yep.
Thanks for sticking with us. We hope we've made your day brighter, possibly a bit lovelier and sweeter. Do they count for that drinking game if I say lovelier and sweeter rather than just lovely and sweet?
Definitely doubles for each one, I think.
Yeah, probably should be, So, yes, thanks for listening. Do drop us a line with any questions, comments or thoughts to podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. Make sure you've pressed subscribe if you're listening and have not yet pressed subscribe on whatever podcast app you're listening to us on. And do you know you can add us, I think I mentioned this before, you can add the Gerry Anderson podcast to your Alexa news briefing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that on a Monday you can ask her for your briefing and she'll play the podcast.
What, the whole thing?
Yeah, I think so.
Great.
And even give you the headlines of the latest articles on the Gerry Anderson website.
Well, really?
It's amazing modern technology, isn't it?
Yeah, impressive. Makes it sound very exciting.
That's because it is, Richard.
What a disappointment it's going to be.
Yeah, all right.
When you actually listen to it.
Stop underselling it, thank you.
Sorry.
Well, thanks for listening, Podsterons. We're going to go away and we'll be back in Pod 107 next week.
Crumbs. See you then.
Goodbye.
Stage 1 complete.
Let's go.
Spectrum is green. So are you not going to add it to your smart device briefing? Or have you not got a smart device, Richard?
No, I do. I have an Alexa. I have to say it quietly.
You have to say it quietly, don't you?
Oh, yeah. But actually, we've got two. We've got one upstairs and one downstairs, but of course they can't both share the same name. But so the one upstairs, I think you can have Alexa, or you can have Echo, or you can have computer. And just so I feel like Captain Picard strolling around the deck of the Enterprise, it's called computer.
Of course. And you often demand tea, Earl Grey, hot.
Earl Grey, hot. Of course.
Incredible.
That's right. Yeah. So, yes, I shall try and listen to the Gerry Anderson podcast on it. Maybe both at the same time, upstairs and downstairs.
That would be weird, but lovely idea saying computer.
Slightly out of phase.
Play the Gerry Anderson podcast. Oh, so cool. We're living in the future.
Make it so. Yeah, exactly.
Right, go and enjoy your Earl Grey, and
I will.
See you next week.
Bye.
Goodbye.
You have been listening to the Gerry Anderson podcast. Wasn't it fun?
You have been listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.